record in
Okay.
this way, as the one who is trying to lead this meeting. Okay, I'm recording right now. Perfect.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Okay.
so David,
also
I'm sorry, I speak in Italian for a few words, for 1 second, just to introduce.
Light.
Ok, so, allora, buonasera a tutti. Darei inizio perché sono già le 20:43 e non vorrei che poi dopo ci... Io, allora, ringrazio tutti per la presenza. Do soltanto alcune brevissime, prima di cedere la parola ad Alessandra e a David Quammen per questa serata, alcune regole appunto di funzionamento di Zoom per chi non è particolarmente abituato. Allora, il microfono io potrò gestire la posizione muta, diciamo così, del microfono, che manterrò a tutti, tranne appunto i relatori, poi nel caso si dovesse appunto parlare attiverò il microfono. Però appunto per agilità, anche perché abbiamo Marianna che gentilmente offre la possibilità di tradurre all'interno della chat quello che David Quammen dirà, e quindi per chi non è pratico dell'inglese c'è anche questa possibilità. Quindi ringrazierei anche Marianna moltissimo per questo grande regalo che ci sta dando, che ci sta fornendo.
Niente.
E grazie davvero Marianna in anticipo. E allora vi chiederei, per chi avrà delle domande, di scriverle in italiano o in inglese, anche in italiano direttamente in modo sintetico, perché poi appunto Marianna provvederà poi anche alla traduzione, e questo permetterà anche di avere un ordine appunto delle domande. Allora, come funzionerà? Alessandra introdurrà il nostro ospite, gli spiegherà anche il perché è stato coinvolto in questa serata, e poi noi abbiamo delle domande, perché comunque in ogni caso ci siamo insomma un po' organizzati anche in questo, però chiaramente anche per il nostro pubblico, il pubblico della Bragorà, siamo ben disposti, ben felici appunto di accogliere anche le vostre. Basta, cedo la parola ad Alessandra okay. Oppure se Marianna vuole tradurre, non lo so, se Marianna vuoi tradurre velocemente a David quello che abbiamo detto, ma se no iniziamo direttamente.
No, velocemente traduci.
Ok.
Okay, hello, Mr. Quammen. I am the interpreter. So Luca was explaining everybody how the meeting is going to work. So Alessandra is going to have some questions for you, and she's going to ask you a few of these, and then we will give the translation in Italian in the comments to the people that may want to have it. And then when Alessandra will be done asking questions, we will give the opportunity to the public to ask questions in the comments, and then I will translate it for you in English if they didn't in Italian. So, and we can begin.
Okay, and when I answer a question in English, should I wait for you to translate it into Italian?
It's not necessary because I'm gonna sum them up in the comments, so you can maybe not be super fast, but I will manage to translate them. And since we are recording this, since we will record this, then we will do a proper, complete translation later on.
Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Alessandra.
Okay, I just missed the image. Okay. I think that we don't need to explain who is Mr. Quammen, because everybody knows in Italy, and not only in Italy, of course. I want to point why we as Venetian wanted to know you. It's just because your book is not a book of science, it's not a book of literature, is not a good book, but something that really point out the connection between disease, and our acting, our responsibility in destroying the environment and invading the environment. And then what the consequence strikes us, and it's our fault. It's not just a fatality. And these are the things that really makes so interesting for us to read you. And the first question is about something I thought when I was reading, because what makes amusing also, really enjoying to read, is you're not just many people who write about science and describe situations and people, but you have been actually there. You have traveled, you were chasing monkeys, you were walking in the jungle, and you were traveling all over the world, traveling to see things, to know things with your eyes. Now I see, as a Venetian, an enormous crowd of people traveling, billions of people moving, just with no real interest. There no curiosity, just to move and to say, I've been there. And this is what the travel means at the moment. So I was asking you, what do you think that travel is at the moment? What is the present, the future of the world traveling at the moment?
Wow. First of all, Alessandra, thank you. Grazie mille, and grazie mille, Luca. Thank you all for welcoming me to talk with you, and thank you for allowing me to do it in English and for talking to me in English. I keep coming to Italy, and I love coming to Italy, but I need to learn Italian. So I promise I'll try. Traveling, yes. When my wife and I were in Venice last October, I think it was. First time for us. We loved it. And as we were there as travelers, as tourists, I had work in Bergamo. I went to Bergamo to do a lecture, and then Bergamo was wonderful too. I know how badly Bergamo has been hit. And then we went to Venice, purely as tourists. And of course, it was like a wonderland. And we enjoyed it. But we thought, what must this be like for the people who live here? Especially the people who live here and who don't work in tourism, don't make their money from tourism, don't make their livings from tourism, and who have lived here, some of them probably for generations, their families, in these beautiful old houses that rise above the canals and the little alleyways. There are people up there who live here. What is this like for all of us to come rushing in here and invade their city? We don't know. So that was one of the reasons I was very glad for the opportunity to talk with you. Travel is one of those things, travel generally is one of those things that represents human impact on the natural world. It's one of the choices that we make that draw resources from the natural world that have impact on highly diverse ecosystems. And among other consequences of that are climate change and the threat of pandemic disease and the loss of biological diversity. The three biggest problems that we face. The causes of those three big problems are all one cause, and that's 7.7 billion humans who are hungry, and who are smart and who are capable of designing technologies and who want consumer products like cell phones, like I have. And all of the choices that we make, what we buy, what we eat, how many children we have, if we have children, how much we travel, have impacts on the natural world, with consequences for climate change, consequences for rising seas. I know that's a real thing for you all. Consequences for pandemic threat. So travel is one of those, and it's probably one of the more important. I've read studies that show that if you were going to make 4 changes in your life to reduce climate change, to reduce your personal impact on climate change, those 4 choices would involve: how much meat do you eat? How many children do you have? I can't remember the third one. And the fourth one is, how much do you travel? So if you travel around the world just to say, I've been in Venice, and I've been in Florence, and I've been in Beijing, and I've been in Sydney, Australia. If you have no better reason than that, maybe it would be a good idea to stay home and reread The Leopard. I shouldn't talk about this because I travel a lot, as Alessandra said. I've traveled all over the world. So I need to think about how to travel. And I am thinking about that. And one of the ways to travel less is probably to do more by Zoom. But it's a serious problem, and I sympathize with. I live in a tourist town. My wife and I live on the way to Yellowstone National Park, so we have tourists who come in the summer. And this summer, the tourists are probably going to bring coronavirus when they come. We don't have much in our state. I don't know how much you have in Venice right now, but if we care about these problems, these three big problems: climate change, pandemic threat, loss of biological diversity, one of the things we have to think about is how much we travel when we don't need to travel. And everybody has to make that decision for themselves, but it's worth pointing out this is something that has serious impacts on the world as a whole and on the places that the tourists flock to.
Thank you. But I mean, on the other hand, that traveling is also curiosity.
Yeah, traveling, right? Traveling, I mean, you're right, Alessandra. Traveling is a way of knowing the world and appreciating the world. It's like reading. And both of those are very important. So people learn about other places, other cultures, the way the world is various. So it's a paradox, it's a conundrum. What is just enough travel and what is too much travel? When people travel, I think it would be great if they pay close attention to not just the museums and the churches, but to the houses, the people who live there, the people who work there, the way people make their livings there in addition to tourism. I think that's the travel that will make people understand other parts of the world better, and that'll make them better citizens, and that'll make them perform better in their own democracies and vote more intelligently. And so when someone, demonizes another country, Donald Trump wants us to be mad at China right now. It's all China's fault. It's all China's fault. The Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus. But if you've traveled to China, you know that there are real people there, and they're making their living in various different ways. It's more than, Chinese people, they want to eat bats, they want to eat pangolins, and that's why the world has this huge problem. Travel is one way of breaking through those stereotypes and seeing the reality. So in that way, it's good. It's a conundrum that I can't solve, this evening. But it's important for people to think about. When you travel, it costs you money, and it costs the planet too when you travel. So if you're going to do it for a good reason, and learn from it as much as you can, and don't treat it as just a way to come home with a stamp in your passport and a sticker on your suitcase.
Yeah. Just leave us a moment, because there is Mariana who is writing down what you're writing. Mm-hmm. So everybody can understand.
Okay. Yep. And maybe I'm talking a little too fast.
No, that's fine. But we have to listen and to translate. I think for her, she's a good interpreter. We want to help her with her work. And
It's okay. I had the wrong destination in the messages, but I'm gonna change it later, and I fixed the problem. It's okay. You can go on with the questions.
Okay, thanks, Mariana.
And I think other of us had questions for you. It's not only me talking. I know that Luca wanted to ask you something about science and scientists. Okay, Luca? I'm not sure. Luca, sei muto.
Yeah, you need to unmute.
Okay, sorry. No, because I was realizing that you were losing your voice right now. So it's time for someone else to make the question. Actually, I have a bunch of questions that I really would like to ask you, but I think that there is an aspect that deals with our contemporary or with the days that we lived in these last weeks here. And so, according to your opinion, so we got used to see on TV, on talks, on shows, a lot of scientists, a lot of people belonging to words that are normally they are not used to take part to our daily life. And a lot of, and many times we saw a lot of politicians beside these scientists. According to you, after this event, all those people will carry on keeping their place that we saw during these weeks or not? I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question, the last part of that, Luca.
No, I was thinking about the role of the science and the scientists during these last weeks. We saw a lot of them taking part in talks on TV and on articles, and our daily life has started to be shared with them. And so a lot of people got used to listen to them and to pay attention to what they were saying, because it was an emergency. And also politicians today used to keep them beside. And do you think that they could keep this place for the future, or after this outbreak it could be completely denied as it was in the past?
Yeah, well, there is a danger of that. Yes, you're right. Politicians, certainly in my country, Donald Trump is doing this. In your country, I gather the politicians, maybe the president or others are doing this. Here, I'm going to talk to you about the pandemic, and it's so serious. And I have my scientist next to me, and he will support everything I say, and he will talk to you with a scientific authority. If you're, I don't want to be too political, and just say that what I feel about Donald Trump, but I'll say a little bit. He has this wonderful scientist, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Everyone trusts Anthony Fauci. For 30 years, he's been in that job, head of the National Institute for Allergies and Infectious Diseases. And he has dealt with 6 presidents, and he knows how to deal with politicians as well as how to deal with diseases. So he is there, except now he's in isolation. Now he's in quarantine for 2 weeks. But he has been there, and he has helped the American people understand this, and to some extent the world, insofar as other people are listening, understand this pandemic, because he is a truthful man. He has helped Donald Trump because people trust Anthony Fauci, and therefore they think, well, maybe Donald Trump is handling this well. There's a lot of conflict that isn't seen between Anthony Fauci and Donald Trump. Donald Trump says that 2 and 2 is 5. And then Anthony Fauci has to come up and say, well, the president has a very good point. 2 and 2 is 5 if you add 1. Otherwise, 2 and 2 is 4. And he does that every day. And it's political as well as scientific. In your country, I can't speak to that, but I It wouldn't surprise me if you have similar things going on. We desperately need for political leaders to pay more attention to scientists. Scientists knew that this pandemic was going to happen. And as Alessandra kindly said, I described that in my book. I talked with them 10 years ago. The book came out in English 8 years ago. And the scientist had told me, there is a pandemic likely to happen. It will come from a virus. The virus will come from a wild animal. What kind of wild animal? Well, very possibly a bat. What kind of virus? Well, very possibly an influenza or a coronavirus, because they evolve quickly. Where? Well, very possibly in a wet market, for instance, in China. So that was there. The scientists knew that. And I knew that because I talked with them, and other science writers who listened to them also knew it. We hollered, we published our books, we made as much noise about this as we could. The political leaders, particularly some of them, ignored it, and there has been a great cost in lives lost, suffering, jobs lost, economic suffering, not because the warnings weren't there, but because the warnings weren't listened to, or the warnings weren't acted on. After this, will that continue? Will we still have politicians who use scientists only for decoration and ignore the warnings that they give? It's going to depend on people in the democracies anyway. It's going to depend on whether people see what's happening and what has happened in this horrible series of events. If they see it clearly and they realize that they have been poorly served by politicians who don't really care about science, who deny science, or who use a scientist only as a decoration. The politicians aren't going to change. Donald Trump is not going to change in his heart. I can't speak to your Prime Minister, Mr. Conte. I leave that to you to make judgments. But Donald Trump is not going to change in his heart. So political leadership has to change, not because the individuals will change, but because the people, we choose better leaders, make better choices. And being better educated in science ourselves and understanding the connection between what we've talked about, personal choices, consumption, population, and pandemic threat, climate change. If we are better educated and vote more wisely, then we'll have new leaders who can make better decisions based on science. I think everything I just said is obvious, but that's what I feel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Parlato di
sorry. No, I was just thinking about something else, and in your book, and I really would like to understand if you, which is your point of view about a possible project for the future. It's not a kind of forecast, it's kind of your way of thinking about a plan for the future, and in this connection with the environment and with the nature. Because while I was reading your book, I often thought about Aldo Leopold's Ascent Country Almanac. Of course, I think that you know. And there he speaks about the conservation. It's a kind of a state of harmony between man and land. Mm-hmm. And by your book, I can understand that there is a kind of repairing of the world in some terms. Is it true? Is it correct?
A kind of repairing?
A kind of repair, the need of repairing the world. Yeah.
Yes. Aldo Leopold talked about, yeah, you're right. He talked about the conservation ethic, the land ethic, appreciation that it all starts with the land, the landscape, wild landscapes, even pastoral landscapes, human occupied landscapes can be relatively in harmony with nature. But if we think of if we think of all the world as resources for human use, human consumption, human convenience, human enjoyment, then we have no land ethic. We just have a consumption ethic. How do we get back to a land ethic? It's not easy because most people live in cities, far away from the rest of the natural world. I don't say far away from the natural world because there is only one world, and humans are part of it, and everything humans do is part of the natural world, but it's an imbalanced part of the natural world. One of the things I like to mention is that now there are 7.7 billion of us humans on this planet. We are large-bodied creatures, and never in the history of planet Earth, almost certainly, has there been a single species of large-bodied animal as numerous as us, as abundant as us. Not even close. And if there had been, we would see it in the fossil record. It would be there. So this is unprecedented. 7.7 billion large-bodied creatures, big brains, relatively big brains, and big appetites, designing technology, wanting to consume. As long as that is our framework, we can't repair our relationship with the natural world the way Leopold talked about. We need to start to understand how important it is to stop our population growth and even gradually bring down the size of the human population, and create greater equality of consumption so that some people with huge amounts of money aren't consuming huge amounts of resources, and other people living in an African village, a woman and a man with, 6 children, somebody could say, well, see, they've got too many children, they've got 6 children. Yeah, but they're not consuming anything. And the impact of population, the impact of any animal species on Earth, including the human species, is not sheer population. It's population multiplied by consumption. Likewise with any individual, with any family. A family of 6 in an African village is probably consuming much less than a family of husband and wife and 2 children in the United States or in a middle-class area in Italy. More consumption. So we have to think about how to reduce our population level and our consumption and make our consumption more equitable so that some people aren't consuming far more than their share. And these are, this is one of these wild socialist ideas. I don't know. I'm not saying this politically. I'm just saying this from an ecological standpoint. That's what it seems to me we need to do. And how do we get there? Well, we start by talking to people and writing books for people and writing articles for people so that more people can maybe read something because they think it's going to be entertaining, and maybe it will be entertaining, but then come out of it saying, oh, I see the world a little bit differently now. And maybe that means I will change some of my choices. Maybe I won't have a 3rd child. Maybe I won't eat meat 7 days a week. Maybe if I flew to Venice last year, I should stay home this year. We can only hope that by continuing to talk about these things and write about these things, we'll persuade more people to think about it in a different way. That's the only road toward repairing our relationship with nature, I think.
Okay, thank you. Alessandra, go on.
I disappeared for a while because I had some problems with connection.
I exploited the moment to make another question, don't worry.
Alessandra, I thought maybe you had gone out to walk your dogs.
No dog, just cats maybe.
Oh, okay, cats, okay. My wife came in a minute ago she was chasing the cat, I think, and she took him away. So it's just me and the snake here now.
I had a problem with connection. Then I heard at the end of your talk about, consciousness. But I ask you something that I often think that my generation did something very wrong, where we have the world now which is worse than when I was 20. Do you think that the new generation, that people are 20 now, will have strength to change something? It is possible that new people can put things in a different way.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. My generation and your generation have done a lot of things that, you know, have been bad decisions for the planet. I hope that, and then there's, you know, a couple more generations, but if people are 20 now, the greatest necessity, I think, is for them to stay engaged so that they care about the whole planet, and to have hope that they can make changes. Because if they don't have hope, then they won't do anything. And maybe it's very, very, very difficult to fight these battles. The battles like you're fighting with your association in Venice, and the battles against climate change, and these other battles. It's very, very difficult to fight these battles, and people can feel like, oh, it's impossible. But they have to have hope. We have to make sure that they have hope that if they do things, if they fight, there will be a chance of results. Maybe not a guarantee of results, but a chance of positive results. So that's, I think, part of what we have to do is to bequeath them not just anger and sensitivity to these problems, but some kind of hope. Jane Goodall is very
Not
good.
only anger, but hope. That's a good message. That's a great message.
Mm.
So I think that for us it's easier to have anger than hope.
Yeah. I think it's important to have both.
Yeah. And any question from the present?
Yes, there was one from Paolo. Maybe Mariana could translate it just directly on voice, maybe without writing it.
Yes, I cannot find the question in the comments. It got lost.
Wait a second. I will forward it. Just a
Okay.
second, because it was sent to me privately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a second. Mariana. I'm sorry, just a second, because I can't find Mariana here.
Maybe
okay.
You can unmute Paolo.
Okay.
That the question.
Okay.
And then
Mariana... You should find it. You should find it on the chat.
It's the one about the Amazon forest?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second that I read the question, then I'll translate it. Okay, so the question is from Stefano, am I right?
No, from Paolo.
From Paolo. He is involved in the whole cause of Brazil and the indigenous community. And he said that Salgado launched a cause, and he drew the attention on the intimate relationship that the indigenous communities have with the environment and nature, and he's asking why these kind of pandemics never seem to arrive from population that have a very deep connection to nature, if there's some causality, and why it seems that it comes from other parts of the world instead.
That's a good question, and it leads to some interesting topics in infectious disease. I think you're right, Paolo, that we never or seldom hear about indigenous people living a fairly solitary, independent life for instance, in the Amazon, them suffering diseases, except when outsiders come in and bring the diseases, the way smallpox was brought to the New World in the 15th century. It's probably not that they're living, I mean, they are living in better balance with nature than developed societies are. They have a small population. It's not that they're not interacting with animals. They're capturing animals, they're killing animals, they're eating animals in many cases, but they're doing it sustainably because their population is very small and they're following traditional means of hunting and harvesting rather than technologically assisted means of hunting and harvesting. So their impacts are small, and that's good. Presumably they experience spillovers of viruses and other pathogens from those wild animals that they interact with. But if you're a group of people, say a village of indigenous people living in the middle of the Amazon, and there are 50 of you, and a new virus spills over, for instance, from a marmoset that you've captured as a baby because the mother has been killed and you're going to raise it as a pet in the family, or from some sort of a forest deer that you may have killed for food. If you're exposed to a new virus, it spills over into your population of 50 people, then if that virus is very bad, it might infect 40 of the people in the village, and it might kill 10 of them, and then it will be done. And we've all heard about herd immunity. At that point, if it infects 40 or 45 people out of 50 in this little community, the virus will be done. And it will burn out, it will disappear because it can't sustain itself. It doesn't have any more people to infect. 10 people are dead. 35 people are now immune because they've experienced this virus. And 5 people was not enough for the virus to continue and maintain itself. So it disappears. So I think we shouldn't romanticize those indigenous people and assume that because they're living in harmony, they have no problem with viruses, they have no problem with infectious diseases. The fact is that infectious diseases become a really terrible problem when human populations are large and living in large groups. But that doesn't mean they're not a problem at all when humans are small in population, living in isolated groups. The viruses there will come and go and nobody will ever hear about it.
Okay, I'm gonna translate the question. So, allora, dice, sì, hai ragione Paolo, alla fine le comunità indigene hanno piuttosto ricevuto delle malattie dall'esterno, però è anche vero che sì, vivono in ecosistemi più bilanciati, hanno una relazione con gli animali selvatici, però queste relazioni avvengono in modo sostenibile, nel senso che e la cattura degli animali avviene con metodi tradizionali, non industrializzati, e soprattutto queste comunità tendono ad essere molto piccole in quanto a numero. Però è anche vero che non dobbiamo romanticizzare questo ruolo di una relazione più profonda con la natura di queste comunità, perché dobbiamo pensare più che altro all'epidemiologia, come avviene se per esempio un virus proviene da un animale a cui loro sono abituati e che cacciano. Questo virus contagia una popolazione che è molto piccola, quindi magari ne uccide 10, ne contagia altri 20, se parliamo di una popolazione di 50 persone, però poi è finito lì perché il virus non ha più persone da contagiare e quindi di questo virus non sapremo mai niente. Il problema delle pandemie avviene quando un virus incontra delle comunità molto grandi, molto in movimento e dunque trova persone da contagiare e si diffonde. Ok, thank you.
Mariana? Any other question? Well, there's something we were discussing among us. We are curious about. It's we know that there is a new book of yours which is coming out, The Tangled Tree. If you can talk about that, because we enjoyed the previous one.
Okay, sure. Yes, thank you for asking, Alessandra. Yeah, so you know, Spillover was published back in 2014, I think, in Italy. In 2018, I published a new book in the US, and that book now, The Tangled Tree, the Italian title is, I should remember.
L'albero intricato.
L'albero intricato, yeah. The Tangled Tree. It's a book about the idea of the tree of life as the picture of evolutionary history on Earth, coming from one source and branching into great limbs, different kingdoms of life, and then into branches, and finally into twigs, representing the diversity of life on Earth. It's a book about that idea, the tree of life, and the way that idea has been radically revised in the last 40 years by discoveries from genome sequencing, from DNA and RNA sequencing, which has revealed that the tree of life is much different from what we thought. The tree of life is not a tree. The tree of life is tangled, because we have learned about some very peculiar phenomenon that Charles Darwin never imagined, that biologists through the first half of the 20th century never imagined, that complicate that image. Phenomenon such as horizontal gene transfer, which means genetic material moving sideways from one species into another, from one kingdom of life into another. It's supposed to be impossible. Hereditary material is supposed to move vertically from parents to offspring, from parents to their progeny. That's what we always thought as the way it happened. And then evolution modified that as the genetic material moved from parents to offspring. That's still true, but now we know that sometimes genetic material moves sideways. How can that be possible? One of the main ways is by infection. I'm talking about disease again. Viral infection, bacterial infection can actually carry genetic material sideways and from one kind of creature and drop it in the genome of another creature so that it becomes inheritable. And we know this has happened, that even we humans, our genomes contain material, genetic material that has been brought in by viral infection and left in our genomes. And in some cases it does nothing. And in some cases it has been modified into genes that actually function as parts of human life. For instance, there is a gene called syncytin-2, S-Y-N-C-Y-T-I-N, syncytin-2, no need to remember that name, but there is a gene that in humans creates a membrane between the placenta and the fetus, absolutely necessary for human pregnancy. This membrane carries nutrients from the mother into the fetus. It carries waste products from the fetus out into the mother so that she can get rid of them in her urine. This membrane, totally crucial, but where does this membrane come from? It comes from a gene that came into the animal lineage by viral infection and then was modified. It's a gene that formerly created a membrane in the virus, part of the capsule surrounding the virus. And once it got into humans over millions of years, of pre-human ancestry, once it got into mammals, once it got into animals before mammals, it was modified and became this membrane between the placenta and the fetus. This viral gene makes possible internal pregnancy. If our distant ancestors, our distant animal ancestors hadn't been infected with this virus, then we would still be laying eggs on the ground because it would be impossible to have an internal pregnancy. viral infection, a viral gene. So that's the kind of thing that this new book is about. And it's about a man, one man named Carl Woese, an American microbiologist who worked at the University of Illinois, in a little town in Illinois, for his entire career, and who had some amazing ideas and some deep curiosity. And he invented the methodology for discovering the movement of genes between different kinds of species, the horizontal movement of genes. So the book is about these ideas, and it's about this man and his life.
It's extremely interesting. Something changes our idea of evolution.
Yes, well, that's why the subtitle in English, the title of the book is The Tangled Tree. The subtitle of the book in English is A Radical New History of Life.
Yeah.
That's a big claim. And it's not a claim on my behalf. It's not my radical new view of life. It's Carl Woese and the people, scientists, men and women who were influenced by him, who created this new understanding that the tree of life is not a tree. It's a tangle.
Yeah. Alessandra, there is a question from the chat.
Yeah.
From Paola. She says, in your book, you remember us that we are animals. Is it important to be aware of this?
Oh, it's very important for us to remember that we humans are animals, yes. I think I say in the book that this is one of Charles Darwin's great truths. It's probably among the darkest of his truths when he revealed in 1859 with The Origin of Species and books that followed it, that humans too have taken shape from non-human animal origins, that we are not separate from nature, we're not above it, we're part of it. We're animals, we're mammals. We belong to that family of animals, the mammalia, class of animals. And we have reminders of that all the time, and yet people still insist on forgetting it and thinking that we are gods. We're not gods, we're mammals. We have nipples, even men. Charles Darwin was fascinated by the fact that human men have nipples. He wrote about it in his notebook, and he thought, if God created every creature just the way he wanted, why do men have nipples? And it puzzled him. So it's a reminder that we come from this mammal stock, and evolution didn't see any reason why it should take the trouble of eliminating nipples entirely from men, even though we don't use them. And lots of other things, lots of peculiar anomalies that are left over remind us that we are part of the animal world, and we should behave accordingly. This planet does not belong to us. We're just one of the members of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let Marianna translate.
No, adesso ho lo zanzariere.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I will translate it vocally because it's faster. Quammen ha appena detto un aneddoto su Darwin, che era affascinato appunto dal fatto che anche gli uomini avessero i capezzoli. Questi fa per esempio, cioè è un esempio del fatto che comunque noi deriviamo da degli stadi di evoluzione, e l'evoluzione ha pensato che in effetti questo fosse una cosa che poteva rimanere lì, anche i capezzoli negli uomini, e dunque insomma era un aneddoto divertente.
So, any other question?
I think there was somebody before who was wanted a last question, then we let you go because we would stay hours to talk.
Oh yeah, there is a question from the chat.
From Stefano. Yeah, you can read it. Marianna?
Yes, the question from Elena Menegazzi. Right?
No.
There's one we skipped, no?
Elena, is yours?
From...
Did you? Yes.
Yeah. So Elena asks, do you believe that the World Health Organization has a responsibility in the circulation of the epidemic in China and then of the pandemic consequently?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the World Health Organization is, they have a difficult job, and they are partly a political organization as well as a health organization. They're part of the United Nations. Members have voting power over, as a matter of fact, they're meeting right now, virtually, not in Geneva, but they're meeting today. And I was hearing speculation today whether the head, Dr. Theodoros, I think, was going to be fired, and they say, no, he probably will not be fired. He has some years remaining on his term, but it's difficult, and our expectations of the World Health Organization should contain the recognition that it is to some degree a political organization. In some cases, they have acted, it's thought that they have acted too soon to declare a global health emergency of international concern, or a public health emergency of international concern. In 2009, if I recall correctly, when it was feared that there was a swine flu, an influenza epidemic that had begun in Mexico and was going to spread around the world and be a very bad pandemic, 2009. I believe early on, the World Health Organization, I might be wrong about which event this was, but they declared a public health emergency of international concern early on. And then there were consequences. There were economic consequences and political consequences of that declaration. And that pandemic turned out to be not nearly as bad as had been feared. So then they were criticized that they had made their declaration too soon. In other cases, they're criticized they made their declaration too late. In this case, they are certainly being criticized for having made their declaration too late. I think it was the second week in March, maybe. Again, I'm just remembering as best I can these facts from the top of my head. We shouldn't have to depend on the World Health Organization. We should be able to communicate one nation to another, from China to Italy, from China to the US, between Italy and the US. We need much better global coordination of infectious disease surveillance and response. We badly need that, better global coordination. The World Health Organization is never going to be the total answer to that. Some of what we need to do country to country directly. That's why the current argument between the US and China is so counterproductive. It's exactly what we don't need. So we shouldn't hold our breaths about the World Health Organization being improved to the point where they are the answer to all of our problems. We need to be working in various different ways on different channels, and most importantly, creating networks of information sharing, of resource sharing, of movement of scientists from one country to another, movement of personal protective equipment from one country to another as needed at time of a crisis, fast identification of the genome sequences of a new virus so that diagnostic test kits can be created fast, mass-produced, and be available across borders. Viruses don't care about borders. And closing airports generally happens too late and incompletely. So rather than feeling like we can lock a virus out of our country, we should realize that the way to stop a pandemic, the way to stop a disease problem in your own country is to help stop it in the world. A public health official said to me recently on the same subject, he says, we've come to the point now with globalization where a disease anywhere is a disease everywhere. So
gonna...
disease fighting, we need disease fighting to be as globalized as the viruses can be.
Okay, I'm gonna translate vocally for it to be faster. Allora, traduco anche per gli altri. Dunque, Quammen dice che la domanda era se secondo Quammen c'era una responsabilità dell'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità riguardo alla gestione della pandemia, che pare essere stata troppo poco tempestiva. E Quammen risponde che non dobbiamo affidarci all'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità perché spesso questa ha ricevuto critiche e non dobbiamo neanche dimenticarci che è un ente politico. Ha fatto l'esempio dell'influenza suina, che nel 2009 era stata dichiarata come una pandemia, come una diciamo, malattia che avrebbe avuto delle conseguenze che in realtà non sono state assolutamente così catastrofiche come erano state predette, quindi l'organizzazione era stata criticata. Questo invece è un caso contrario, dove le critiche che sono arrivate sono quelle che dicono che appunto l'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità non è stata tempestiva. Piuttosto, come dice, dovremmo preoccuparci di una migliore coordinazione tra paesi, una coordinazione globale, e che quindi l'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità non è la soluzione, non sarà la soluzione, e che quello che stiamo vedendo ora, che è una disputa tra gli Stati Uniti e la Cina, è proprio quello di cui non abbiamo bisogno. Invece dovremmo concentrarci su avere un database di informazioni che vengono condivise tempestivamente fra paesi, e non solo, ma anche di attrezzature. Deve esserci una condivisione delle sequenze genomiche che vengono fatte in modo tempestivo, perché i virus non hanno confini, e quindi è inutile cercare di tenere il virus fuori dai paesi, quanto piuttosto è importante cercare di collaborare insieme a tutti. E dice anche che appunto la globalizzazione ha reso possibile il fatto che una malattia da una parte del mondo diventi molto velocemente una malattia, una pandemia che è presente in tutti i paesi in modo molto veloce.
Thank you for the
Grazie.
answer. It's absolutely
Grazie mille.
condivisibile. How do you say
You're
condivisibile?
welcome. Alessandra says that she agrees with you, and it's a thing that is very agreeable.
Agreeable. I missed what I think that the big risk at the moment, and we see it in Italy, is that nationalism, sovereignism, as we call, is growing, and more everybody say, no, I just think for my own country, for my border, and this is going against everything you said. So it's a big danger for global health in the future, global health in the future.
Yeah, yes it is, yeah.
So I guess there is maybe one of the last questions from Stefano. I don't know if Marianna has read already.
Stefano.
Yes, I'm gonna read it and then translate it in 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, the question is that in 1918, after the the Spanish influenza, Rudolf Steiner was asked what was the cause of the Spanish influenza, and he answered that viruses are only the waste material of infected cells. If the viruses are parts of DNA and or RNA, or of some other protein that are expelled from cells. They are generated when the cell is poisoned, and they are not the cause of anything. And he wanted to ask what you think about this information.
Well, in 1918, Steiner can be forgiven for thinking that viruses were simply waste materials for cells, from cells, because in 1918 we couldn't see a virus because no one had invented the electron microscope. The electron microscope was not invented until the 1930s. So viruses were invisible, even to microbiologists. They could only talk about viruses inferentially. They talked about filterable virus, and they didn't really know what they were talking about. Filterable meaning it would pass through a filter. Viruses are much smaller than bacteria. Bacteria can be captured in a porcelain filter. And scientists were studying the causes of diseases, and they thought that these diseases were caused by mysterious liquids, because you could pass liquid through this filter that would catch bacteria, and then the liquid would still cause the disease. So they thought this was mysterious particles, fragments, or something, or a mysterious essence in these liquids causing the disease. And it was simply because there was something smaller than bacteria, small enough to pass through these filters, that couldn't be seen with a regular microscope. And then in the 1930s, scientists invented electron microscopes, and they looked, and there were these particles. There were these round particles and these capsules and these filaments, and those were viruses. And for the first time in the 1930s, we could see that viruses have material bodies and they are real.
Allora, la risposta è che Steiner può essere, diciamo, perdonato per questa sua affermazione perché nel 1918 non esistevano ancora i microscopi elettronici e quindi si parlavano di questi virus come di qualcosa di misterioso, virus filtrabili, perché si pensava che potessero essere catturati quando invece non è sicuramente il caso, perché quello che può essere catturato sono i batteri e loro non sapevano che esistesse qualcosa di molto più piccolo, che erano questi virus, appunto. E quindi fino al 1930 di fatto quello che si diceva sui virus era qualcosa di molto vago e poi appunto dopo il 1930 si è scoperto il virus e si sono notati questi filamenti molto più piccoli dei batteri.
All right. Thank you, Mariana, also for translation. There is, I guess, the last question from Stefano. Again, Stefano Bravo. It's a short question.
Yes, so Stefano asked that the big companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, how should they act to create a different set of mind about how to live in this world and how to change things? So what kind of responsibility they have?
Well, they certainly have responsibility, but we shouldn't expect big companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft to give us spiritual answers as to how we should live. Those companies create tools, and the way we use those tools is a matter for individual citizens and artists and philosophers and scientists. And so Facebook is a tool. It's not a tool that I use very much. Zoom is a tool that turns out to be very valuable in this particular situation. And Skype is a tool that's turning out to have great value in this particular situation. Microsoft makes tools also, and I think the best thing to come from Microsoft is, and this may sound provocative, the best thing to come from Microsoft, maybe after their widespread operating systems, is Bill and Melinda Gates being very rich, because they are doing very good things with their riches. They're doing things in terms of vaccine research, in terms of malaria research. 500,000 people, mostly African children, still die of malaria every year. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have been putting huge amounts of resources, not just money, but their own intelligence and their concern and expertise into that. So I'm thankful to whoever created Zoom. I'm thankful to whoever created Skype. I'm thankful to Google for the Google Hangouts, because these are tools that allow us to stay intellectually and emotionally connected in a time of social distancing. And I'm grateful to Microsoft because Bill and Melinda Gates have turned out to be wonderful global citizens and are doing very good things with their incredible wealth.
Okay. Yes, someone.
Yeah, go, Mariana, go, sorry.
Ok. Allora, dice che queste grandi compagnie non dovrebbero essere viste come delle guide spirituali, che non dovrebbero dirci che concezione avere riguardo alla vita e la visione appunto di questi problemi, semmai creano degli strumenti che sono da usare individualmente e che possono essere più o meno utili. Dice, io non uso molto Facebook, però per esempio degli strumenti come Zoom e Skype in questa situazione dove dobbiamo osservare le misure di distanziamento sono molto utili, perché ci permettono di rimanere connessi da un punto di vista emotivo e intellettuale. Poi dice, adesso dirò una cosa provocante: la cosa migliore che è venuta fuori da Microsoft è stato che ha fatto arricchire Bill e Melinda Gates, perché si sono rivelate delle persone molto diciamo molto importanti per il loro coinvolgimento nella ricerca, nei vaccini, e appunto sono persone di grande intelligenza, quindi è grato per questi strumenti, ecco.
Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome.
So, Alessandra, let's go close up, or?
I think, yeah, we
Yeah.
have to leave you. Can't keep you all night or your day for you.
I've enjoyed it very much. I've enjoyed it very much, being able to visit with you and be part of your association for this evening.
Yeah.
I'm very honored to be invited and very glad for the chance to talk to you and to listen to you.
We were very happy to have you here, everybody of us, and I hope we can meet in Venice. And so you can meet Venetian in Venice and see it in a different way. I hope it can happen not too far away, okay?
When I come back, if I get back to Venice, I would love to meet you all, and I would love to be able to sit in on a meeting of your association. But I better learn Italian first.
But we have Mariana.
Yeah. And also, David, you have to know also that this is our virtual venue, because actually we have a stunning, sorry, I'm sorry, there was Nico. No, I was saying that we have a physical venue that is stunning, and so we will be glad to welcome you there next time you will come.
I would love to. I would love that very much. I hope that will happen. I'll try and make that happen. I would love to come back to Venice, and if so, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you so much. And if you, yeah, and Elena, do you have the t-shirt? No? Yeah. I'm sorry. It doesn't work. You have to put. So that is the t-shirt of our association. And if you give us your address, we will be glad to send you one. And also the size. Also, you have to tell us.
All right.
Okay.
I will send that to Alessandra by email.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I sweep in Italian now. Chiedo a tutti se possono attivare la telecamera adesso per fare una foto di gruppo. Quelli che sono presenti.
Group photo?
Yeah, group photo.
Yeah.
I have to put the video on just to make a photo of all.
Okay, get everybody.
La mia non funziona, scusatemi.
Ok. Ready?
Ok. Ok.
Done. Maybe someone else.
Got
Okay.
it?
So,
Okay.
Manifestatevi.
David, thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
Don't be
Thank
afraid. Show your faces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Quammen.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
in Venice.
Thank you. You in Venice. Grazie mille.
Thank you,
Grazie.
David.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marianna.
Thank you, Marianna. You are the best.
E grazie
Thank
Marianna,
you.
thank you.
Prego.
Thank you, Mr. Quammen.
Ok, end meeting.
Grazie a tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Siete
Grazie
senti?
Marianna, grazie infinite Marianna, bravissima davvero.
Marianna, sei
Grazie.
bravissima e una bellissima voce anche.
Grazie.
Bravissima.
Complimenti.
Non ho
Scusate
parole.
che avevo visto che stavo mandando in privato perché Zoom mi ha messo automaticamente in privato quando qualcuno ha scritto.
Sì,
Quindi ho
certo,
cercato.
sì, sì,
Ma
sì,
sì,
sì.
non c'è nessun problema. Guarda
Non
che
hai
sei...
fatto male a manifestarti, Marianna, perché ti chiameremo tantissimo.
Esatto.
Sei enorme.
Grazie davvero,
Grazie.
bravissima,
Grazie.
veramente.
Siete
Grazie.
contenti?
Molto,
Very.
molto.
Andato
Bene.
bene. Gino, sei stato nominato un sacco di volte.
Ho sentito. Nomination.
E non come Giuseppi, ma Gino.
Ragazzi, adesso spengo, Attenzione.
Ciao, grazie a tutti.
Ciao, buonanotte.
Ciao, Giovanna
Grazie
Piccitto.
Alessandra.
Ciao a
Ciao.
tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao,
Ciao
buonanotte.
Giovanna Piccitto. Ciao ciao a tutti.
Qua. Ciao.
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 Marianna, l'evoluzione.